In the 6th chapter of Mark's Gospel, we find the account of Jesus sending his disciples out on mission. They are going to preach and they are going to heal. The first thing Christ tells them is that they have authority over unclean spirits. Matthew says in chapter 7, "We cast out many demons in your name." That kind of language was always viewed as a primitive and superstitious. However, don't downplay it. Make no mistake, it was a warning against evil. Now the Bible certainly knows a lot about sin. It also knows about disorder and dysfunction, but there is another level, a third dimension of evil that undercuts the others in a more dangerous way. This is the acknowledgement of truly spiritual evil existing. I am talking about fallen angels. Christians go to church every week and we confess our belief in God who made both the visible world and the invisible world. It means acknowledging a world of spirits that exist at a higher pitch of existence. What is a devil but a fallen or morally compromised angel? Let's face it, there are good and bad human beings. And therefore it follows that there are good and bad angels. Think of a wicked person you know who you may know or know that is also very smart, very talented, and well connected. This is a truly dangerous person when you combine wickedness with other powers. Fallen angels influence the world in very direct and frightening ways. Talk to anyone who was ever involved in an exorcism. Some crazy and extraordinary stories told there for sure. However, that is not the typical way that the dark would intervene in your life. This usually happens in an indirect way, by subtle suggestion or minor temptations. Luca Signorelli's painting The Preaching of the Antichrist hand towel captures this perfectly. This is the most striking depiction of the Antichrist. Notice the Antichrist figure is listening as the devil whispers in his ear. It's a depiction of classic temptation, but what is more interesting is that the devil puts his hand in the clothing of the Antichrist, in such a way that it looks like the Antichrist's own arm. It's a very clever way of suggesting how the dark powers have influenced us indirectly, in such a way that it looks like our own desire, not the devil's intent. Now, what are the signs of the demonic? What are the ways the demonic appears? Look at the names the Bible gives the devils. They all mean to cast apart, to throw apart, to scatter. The unrecognized sign of the demonic is that of scattering. And just so you know, God is the opposite, a great gathering force. Whenever things come together, when a community forms, that is a sign of the Holy Spirit. The scattering power is a sign of the darker powers. When families get scattered, when communities, and especially culture, become divided, that comes from the demonic. Try this experiment, examine your conscience and consider how many times in the course of the day you accuse someone or somebody of something. My guess is that you will be surprised to realize how often you do this. Yeah, we do this a lot. Point the finger, blame, gossip, and why not, destroy someone's character. The sign of the demonic is to accuse. The Bible also calls the devil the father of lies. God is truth, truthfulness about ourselves, about our relationships, about our family, and hopefully everything else. Truthfulness is always the path of light, the path that leads to smooth sailing. The sign of the demonic is deceitfulness and untruth. Think of the way an untruth about you has perhaps wounded you in a very deep way. Someone said something about you that was not true, but yet it wounded you in such a way that that wound is still festering. Think of the times you have wounded somebody with an untruth. The wrecking of someone's reputation or character by means of a lie are signs of the dark powers. The sign of the dark power is to always promote death. John described the devil as a murderer. Look at the 20th century, which is the bloodiest on record. The number of people killed for ideological purposes in warfare in the 20th century was the worst ever recorded in human history. Can you explain that through psychological or political reasoning? It seems almost comical to say that Hitler, Stalin, Mao can simply be understood politically or psychologically and not demonically. So that is the bad news. The good news is that Jesus Christ has already conquered these evil powers. He has conquered individual sin and collective sin, but the Bible also clearly is witness to the fact that Jesus has conquered these powers. That is what Christ did through the power of the cross, which means that we do not have to be beholden to these powers. They have been defeated and we can now claim victory over them. They have been defeated by Christ, and we have to claim loudly that victory daily.